Hello YouTube, in this video I'll be talking about whether focusing on acceleration or top speed will give you the best sprint results. Now, to be honest, the reason why there's even a debate is because everyone's at different points. Some people are fast, some people are slow, and this would naturally determine whether you should be focusing, whether you'd have to focus on acceleration or top speed for your best sprint results. But if you're not sub 11 seconds, in my opinion, I would say you should be focusing on acceleration. I'll explain why now in this video. But first of all, let's talk about why you'd want to look at top speed. If you focus on top speed, you're able to naturally lengthen your acceleration because you're able to get to a higher speed, so it's gonna have to take you longer to get to that speed, most likely. So what's gonna end up happening is you're going to be in your drive phase for much longer than you normally would, which is why training top speed is wonderful if you really want to get fast. Which is why a lot of people say you should train top speed, because if you can, to be honest, when you're sprinting, the main goal of sprinting would be to get to the highest top speed possible. For example, like 30 miles per hour. Actually, did you wait? Something, you know, I handle kilometers much better. Like 40 kilometers per hour whilst you're sprinting on average, or like that's the highest you're able to pull off. That would be a more natural thing to want to work towards, because you know it's more visible to see the progress, because you can actually see that you're running faster. Another reason why you want to focus on top speed is because the higher top speed is, the higher you're able to decelerate from. So if you're running at, like, let's say 30 kilometers per hour, you're gonna go 29, 28, 27, 26. Compare that to running at 20 kilometers per hour, where you're gonna go 19, 18, 17. You get a point as you decelerate at around 80 meters in the race if it's 100. And that's just quite obvious, a big difference, because if you're racing against someone whose top speed is like 35 kilometers, but yours is 40 kilometers, they're gonna reach their top. Let's say you both get to 80 meters at around the same time somehow, and you both start to decelerate at that point. What's going to end up happening is you're going to look like you're pulling away, and they're just going to look like they're slowing down, saying the whole field as well is running at 35 kilometers per hour. Whilst in reality, what's happening is everyone is decelerating, including yourself. But the big difference here is you're decelerating from a higher point. So essentially, they're decelerating, but they're just going down with each other. So they're basically going to get a similar time, unless a couple of them mess up, they start tensing up. But you are just going down from 40 to 39, and you still haven't dropped down to their fastest time. I mean, their fastest speed. So what's going to end up happening is you're just going to look like you're pulling away, and you're just going to be able to just basically sprint through much better than everyone else is, as long as you don't mess up, obviously, because there's like a 5 kilometer per hour difference between the two, and you're going to have to go down much, like you'd have to go down by like 2 kilometers per hour with each like step, maybe each 2 steps, to maybe catch up to them and maybe have the chance to like tie at the finish line first. And the chances of that happening are just too low, which is why people like to focus on top speed, because the higher top speed, well, then obviously if your opponents don't have as high top speed as you and everyone's decelerating at the same rate, then obviously it's a win-win. Like, even if you mess up your start, you're just gonna win. And then the next reason would be it's just easier to lower your times, especially if you're slow, because if you're slow, there's a lot to work on that you can increase your top speed compared to if you're already fast. So obviously the focus would be to just increase top speed to try and get faster, because if you're running like 11-second times and everyone else running 11-second times is sprinting like something like 25 kilometers per hour, and you can get to 30 kilometers per hour, then obviously quite easily you're gonna just dominate when you go out on the field, even if you don't know how to do any acceleration or drive phase or anything like that. As long as you get to your top speed, you're basically gonna win every single time. But the problem is, in my opinion, like I said, I believe acceleration is much better if you want to choose between focusing on acceleration or top speed for the best sprint results. Purely because as long as you focus on your acceleration, you're able to use less energy to reach top speed. Because whilst it's great if everyone else was able to decelerate at the same rate, that's an ideal world. In the real world, no one decelerates at the same rate. Some people decelerate later than other people will, and then at a slower rate. There's so many different factors that could influence speed you decelerate at, you might tense up, your form might break down, you might lean too early. There's different things that could vary the speed you decelerate at and your opponents. But if you work on acceleration, you're able to use less energy to get to top speed, so you're able to hold your top speed for longer before you have to start to decelerate. You're able to have a longer drive phase with better mechanics, and these two are very important. Is because the longer you're in your drive phase, naturally, obviously, don't try to force drive phase. The longer you're in your drive phase, the less air resistance you're having to deal with, because if you're in your drive phase for longer, then you're probably going to be lowered down for longer in the race. And what's going to end up happening is, instead of having like your chest getting air resistance slowing you down with each step, along with naturally friction from every single time you step on the floor, what's going to end up happening is, the lower you are, it's just going to, the lower as you get more into the race, what's going to end up happening is just going to raise, and then more air resistance is going to hit you. But that's going to happen to everyone. But if it's happening to you at a slower rate and it's natural, you're not breaking at the waist, you're not triple extending, then obviously you're going to be using less energy, because there's less, you're working kind of with you're working kind of with air resistance in this situation. It's not really, it's hindering you, but compared to everyone else, it's more like it's giving you an unfair advantage. And the next reason why I want to work on acceleration would be because as long as you do it correctly, you'd be able to steadily reach top speed. With cars, it's quite easy to overconsume petrol, because the speed they get at like varies once they're starting to go. If you was to hold like 50 miles per hour on a car, just hold it, you'd be using, and then just like cruise control essentially, you'd be using less energy than another car that's going at like 55 to 60 repeatedly, up and down, up and down, up and down. If you just hold that, you're going to be using less energy, which means again, you're going to be able to hold your top speed for longer, and you might even be able to decelerate slower, which is another reason why you want to look at your acceleration, because especially if you're against a field where their top speed is the same as yours, the rate you decelerate at is extremely important. If you're decelerating the fastest, and everyone's the same with the top speed, you're not really going to win. But if you are decelerating slower than everyone else, it's going to look like you're pulling away, so you are going to win. In my opinion, the reason why acceleration is important again is because most of the time when you're sprinting, because what I said like about decelerating at the same time with everyone else, it's an ideal world. In reality, that's not going to happen. Most of the time when you're sprinting, you're going to go against people that are much slower than you, much faster than you, or just around the same with everything for their top speed. The only difference between everyone every single time, this is the only difference that always occurs, is how they accelerated. How they got into their drive phase, and how they got out of it, and how long they stayed in it. Those are the main factors that determine whether you win a race or not, as well as your top speed mechanics. So obviously I'm not saying don't work on your top speed mechanics, but it's much more important to work on your acceleration, because you can only get so high with your top speed, and there might be various factors that you're unaware of that are actually making it so that you can't increase your top speed. There might be some form of energy leakage within your body. Maybe it's your ankles, because a lot of people twist their ankles, so you're not able to get as fast as you want to, so you're eventually going to cap out, where you're going to have to focus on your acceleration regardless, because that's the only thing you can really do now other than work on your form. But for things like this, and maybe you're not even aware that there's a problem with your form, it would be very easy to just mess up whilst you're trying to do top speed training. And another reason is, you can't do top speed training every single day, but you can do acceleration training basically every single day. You can just repeat it over and over and over again. 2-point, 3-point, 4-point starts, block starts. You can just keep going over and over and over again, which is why I believe, in my opinion, it's best to focus on acceleration instead of just top speed for the best sprint results. Because another reason is, with your acceleration, if it's kind of poor, what you're going to notice is when you come out of your drive phase, are you able to get to your top speed? But what's actually happening is, this top speed you think you're at isn't your real top speed. Your actual top speed would have occurred if you was accelerating properly and you came out of your drive phase completely. Because what would end up happening is, you start to pick up the pace, and every single step is basically perfect on a really good day. Obviously, every single step is basically perfect. You have a slight wide stride length, high stride frequency, and then you come out of your drive phase, and then like for maybe 10 or 15 meters, you're able to get a bit faster, and then afterwards you've hit your top speed. It shouldn't be a case where you come out of your drive phase and now you're like, okay, now I can actually start cycling. Because if that's the case, then you don't have a drive phase. You're probably forcing yourself down. And if you're forcing yourself down, you're wasting energy. And if you don't have a drive phase and you don't use a drive phase, you just come up naturally, you're wasting energy. So making sure you're able to have your acceleration perfect is very important. And this isn't just for 100, because 100 is obviously quite important because you've got less steps to make count towards you winning a race. But for 200 and 400, it's quite important because in the acceleration, you tend to waste about 50% of your total energy just trying to get out of the drive phase. So if you're able to decrease this amount and have a more steady and calm acceleration, you're able to decrease the amount of energy you're out, so you're able to decelerate later. For 200, this is obviously quite important because you're basically going to spend a decent amount of time just coming in the drive phase, coming out, floating, and then actually reaching top speed. But for 400, it's even more important because you need to gradually, especially very important, acceleration is very important for 400. You need to gradually get up to top speed, hold that for basically as long as you can, and then just let the rest of the race is just deceleration, and then just floating whilst you're decelerating, trying to gather back some form of energy for this last spurt that you don't even know exists. But if you have a poor acceleration for the 400 and you use most of your energy, you're going to get to the end of the race and you're just going to burn. So this is the reason why acceleration, in my opinion, is more important, because it doesn't just apply to 100, but 200 and 400. If you have a poor acceleration, you're probably not going to win. However, especially for 400, even if you have a really low top speed, as long as your acceleration is perfect, you still have a chance to win come the last 100 meter, because there's more steps, more time, and it's not how you start the race that matters, it's how you finish it. But if you started the race poor, then your finish is most likely going to be poor. So just make sure that you do focus preferably on your acceleration instead of your top speed. Even if you are a slow sprinter or a fast sprinter, sub 10 or still trying to go sub 12, acceleration is much more important, because as you just sprint, your top speed is naturally going to go up naturally, but the way you do your acceleration, the form for that won't naturally improve if you don't actually work for it. And not a lot of people just do accelerations unless their coaches tell them to, or they're just trying to not do the workout that the coach has given them. Especially if you don't have a coach, you train by yourself, you're probably going to spend a lot of time in 2-point starts and just working on top speed, maybe doing overspeed training, but not so much on acceleration, getting it down, purely because you might not have blocks to do it. But if you can, make sure that you're able to get blocks somehow and work on acceleration, or just 4-point starts and just make sure your acceleration is perfect as possible. Because if it's not, you can't really get as fast as you want when you do hit that eventual speed barrier that's going to come. If you like the video, there'll be descriptions of things that I might have missed out, or things that I think are important that I did miss out in this video. If you like my content, if you like my content, give me a comment, say you did. Any questions, any video suggestions, put those down in the comment section. And subscribe, hit the bell, post every 2 days at 1 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. If that's not your own standard time, then convert it so you know. But if you have the bell on, that won't be a problem.